الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله العالمين والصلاة والسلام على خاتم الأنبياء وسيد المرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. اللهم لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم وتب علينا يا مولانا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. وبعد, we give praise and thanks to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We thank Him for all His numerous favors and bounties for which He showered us. And we seek His mercy and His forgiveness and His guidance. And we ask that He would bless our session today. Inshallah, bless us with an understanding and a deep understanding of His ayat. We still on Surah 16, Surah Nahl. And we did up to 40 in our last session, so we start at 41 today, inshallah. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم والذين هاجروا في الله من بعد ما ظلموا لنبوئنهم في الدنيا حسنة ولأجر الآخرة أكبر لو كانوا يعلمون الذين صبروا وعلى ربهم يتوكلون. The translation reads, and as for those who immigrate for the cause of Allah after they have been wronged, we will certainly give them goodly residence in this world, but indeed the reward of the hereafter will be greater, if they but knew. They are those who remain patient in this world, for the sake of Allah, and put their trust in their Lord alone. These two ayahs, there are a couple of opinions in relation to these two ayahs concerning who they were revealed to. Most scholars consider them to be Makki, right? And so they say that they relate to the believers who migrated from Mecca to Abyssinia. And that's the position of some of the scholars of Tafsir. There are those, a next group, who says that it also relates to the migration or the hijrah to Medina, from Mecca to Medina, and say it covers both. And yet there are another group of scholars who says that while it was specific in terms of the group to Mecca, its ruling is general to cover anyone who fits into this thing. And usually, this usually is the better opinion in that unless it is something that limits it to that particular situation, you can take the Haqq would be am or general to cover anyone who fits that particular condition or situation. So that basically is the better position. You know, in this ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَالَّذِينَ هَاجَرُوا. Right? The word hajara is from, it is hajara. And it basically means to, the word hajara means to, or hajira means to abandon or give up something. To abandon and give it up. To stay away or turn away from it. Right? To turn away from it. The meaning, this meaning comes in the hadith that it is not lawful, right, for a Muslim and tahajjul akhahu fawqa thalath. It is not permissible for Muslim to abandon his brother for more than 3 days. All right? The verb there is hajira. So it means to abandon or to give up something. I think. But so it comes from that verb, right? But this is the fourth form of the verb, hajara. And usually this form of the verb, it relates to I think well between two persons as opposed to just one person doing something. So there's always a counterpart to it when we use this form of the verb. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, you know, sabiku ila magfirah. You know, sabiku, so sabaka, you know, which means to go forward, but sabiku now is to vie with one another. You know, so anytime this form of the verb is used, it covers that from more than one side to it. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying in it, so hajara will be, you know, to abandon. That would be the general meaning that it comes from, or to give up something or someone. But it also means to immigrate or to migrate from one place to the other. And there is a little difference between the two, as you mentioned. There's a difference between hajira and hajara, right? There's a difference between it because, like hajira, you know, a person to abandon or forsake something. There is some degree of dislike. They do it because they don't like that person. There's something wrong. They don't like it, you know, so there's a sense of they abandon something because they don't like it. Right? They abandon a place because they don't like it. There's a sign of dislike. When you say hajira, right? They don't like it. They despise the person. There's really hadith explain that particular point of it. So so that's basically how it covers in terms of hajira. You know, that he disliked it because he didn't like the place, right? But the hajara means not only that they did not, it doesn't necessarily mean that they disliked the place where they were. You know, because the believers in Mecca was their home. Mecca was their home. And so they didn't give up just because they didn't like the place. They gave it up because of the circumstances that they faced there. Right? Because of the circumstances that they faced there. So they didn't hate Mecca. They didn't dislike Mecca. Mecca was their home. You know, that's the place that they love, the place of their home where everyone is. But the conditions and circumstances, you know, of persecution and fighting, you know, the people giving them a hard time, that was the reason. So it is not hajara means that, you know, they were strong in their faith, and so they faced difficulties because of it. They faced difficulties because of their faith, and because of the difficulties and challenges they face in such circumstances is why they left. The hajara, they move from there to somewhere else where they will face less difficulties or less challenge. And this is the slight difference between the hajara and hajira. You know, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَالَّذِينَ هَاجَرُوا فِي اللَّهِ. Right? And he uses فِي اللَّهِ. And the Quran uses two terms, فِي اللَّهِ وَإِلَى اللَّهِ. Right? You know, فِي اللَّهِ وَإِلَى اللَّهِ. So this term, you know, when it is, there's a slight different understanding when you use these different terms. So al-hijratu fillahi wal-hijratu ilallahi, there's a slight difference also in understanding for these hijra understanding of this. So, you know, al-hijratu fillahi means hijrah for Allah. You're making hijrah for Allah. And al-hijratu ilallah means you're making hijrah to Allah. And the you know, the understandings is slightly different from the two, in the two, right? Because to Allah, you say al-hijratu ilallah means that you are moving to a better situation than what you were in. You're moving to a situation that's more acceptable and better than what you have or where you are in. Whereas fillah, al-hijratu fillah, means that you are you're standing up for Allah and you're moving for Allah. You're standing up for Allah where you are, and you're moving for Allah. So the believers in Mecca, this was the situation. They were strong in the iman and commitment to Mecca, you know, and they're making hijrah to Allah for Allah because of this, because they're standing up for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in that situation in which they find themselves. This we find, you know, the understanding of hijrah in this context. We find it in a hadith. I think it's Ibn Masud. You find it in the Arba'in an-Nawawi as both. I think Bukhari Muslim reports the hadith. Bukhari reports it, where the Prophet ﷺ, the hadith, where the Prophet, man kana hijratuhu ila Allah, فهجرته إلى الله ورسوله من كان هجرته إلى الله ورسوله فهجرته إلى الله ورسوله ومن كان هجرته للدنيا يصيبها وامرأة ينكحها, and so on. That hadith, it says, you know, and this and that hadith in the context, of course, the individual, you know, that hadith is reported in the context of a brother who was interested in the sister. I think her name was Qais, I think was her name, Qais. And he wanted to marry her at Mecca, but she was already preparing. She's heading to Medina. She's making hijrah. He was not really interested in going to Medina. He wasn't interested in making hijrah at that time, you know, but he wanted to marry her, and she says, you know, look, this is what I'm doing. I'm making hijrah for Allah and His Messenger. I'm making hijrah. I'm getting out of here, you know. So if you want me, you can find me over there, because I'm not, you know, I'm making hijrah to Allah. And she had out, and he stayed around in Mecca for a little while, and then after, he really wanted to, you know, hook up with his sister, so he made the hijrah there for that, right? And the Prophet ﷺ explained this, that, you know, you make your hijrah, and the Prophet, of course, was talking about the intention at that point. So the hijrah is in this context that you're making hijrah for Allah or to Allah. You're making hijrah for Allah, or you're making hijrah to Allah, right? And believers, most believers, you know, they made it, you know, in this context. And there are different types of hijrah, right? There are different types of hijrah. You know, I mean, the scholars talk a whole lot about different kinds of hijrah and stuff like that. But I'm not going to go into all those details. I'm just going to touch really on a few of the, I think, pertinent hijrah that would fall in the context of the ayah of this. The first type of hijrah would be, as the scholars mentioned, would be from Dar al-Harb to Dar al-Islam. From Dar al-Harb to Dar al-Islam. The scholars in the early days, they've divided the world into different categories. There is Dar al-Islam, that's the home of Islam, where Islam is prevalent and Islam is dominant, and Muslims can rule it, and like the Muslim world, Muslims are in charge. And then there is Dar al-Harb, that is those areas that fights the Muslims, that is conducting war against the Muslims. All right, they're fighting the Muslims. So that's called Dar al-Harb. And then the scholars mention a third category, which they call Dar al-Ahad. All right, Dar al-Ahad. That is those nations or areas that has, they might not be Muslim areas, but they have agreements with the Muslims. They have contracts, some treaties and stuff like that, so with the Muslims. So that is a difference. So the area. So moving from Dar al-Harb, that is those areas that where the people, the kuffar fight the Muslims continuously. They are fighting the Muslims and stuff like that. The scholars say you should move from those areas because staying there is supporting that side, right? You're staying there, you're supporting that side, so it's best to move. I remember back in the early 40s back in the 40s, when the British divided India. Remember when the British divided India and created Pakistan, right? And they created Pakistan. Most of the Muslims, a lot of the Muslims were encouraged to move from India, where they were being persecuted, from India to Pakistan, right? So, and just the term itself, this was the Dal Kufr and Shirk, and this was Pakistan. Pak means pure in Urdu, the pure land, right? Pakistan really means that, the pure land, the place of purity. That is aqeedah and belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so most people uprooted themselves and they moved to Pakistan. Right? Many Muslims, they uprooted themselves from India and they moved to Pakistan as a result of that separation there and stuff like that. There's a whole political stuff in relation to that. We're not going into it. But that is one area. So you don't want to support Dar al-Kufr. I mean, where they fight you. So it says this is strongly. Some people make it almost obligated for one to make that hijrah, to move from there and bring your support over there. All right, put your support with the Muslims and not with the people that oppose Islam. A second type of hijrah they talk about is hijrah from bid'ah and haram, things that is wrong, bid'ah and haram. And the scholars take this one from the ayah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, إِذَا رَأَيْتَ الَّذِينَ يَخُوضُونَ فِي آيَاتِنَا. If you see, or when you see those who engage in vain talk about or mocking or ayahs and stuff like that, that you should leave them alone, right? فَأَعْرِضْ عَنْهُمْ. Leave them, right? Leave them. So this covers anything. Anytime you don't sit, and this is not necessarily moving from one country but moving one place to the next. If you sit in a group and the people start to criticize Islam and condemn Islam or the Quran or curse the Muslims and stuff like that, you can't stand there with them while they're doing this and you're not standing up firm for Quran. You have to leave. Like I'm in a situation where you can't really respond and you hear them among themselves because there's not you involved in it, you leave them. Allah says, leave that group, right? Leave that group until they start another discussion other than that. But where they are cursing the Quran and cursing the Muslims, one of the things that we see this sometimes, that Muslims, they'll be condemning the Muslims, they'll be cursing all the Muslims, people are this and they're that and they're terrible and they're talking, but not you, you're a good person. All right? In a situation like that, you cannot sit and accept that. Because you cannot accept them cursing your brothers and sisters, and then, but they make you an exception. Right? Yeah, they make you an exception. You can't do that. All right? And stuff, either you can stand up strongly to them, or you leave them if you don't want to get, you leave that gathering there, you don't want nothing to do with it. Stay away from it. All right? Because it is, and that would cover also anything that is haram. All right? So, you're sitting in a group at a table and everybody drinking alcohol. You can't sit there. Right? You can't sit there. Everybody's drinking alcohol, or they're doing haram stuff, and you sit with them like it's okay. It's not a problem. I mean, yes, you're not doing it, but the mere fact that you sit with them, like nothing happened, like it's okay. I mean, some people say, oh, well, I hate it in my heart. Yeah, but you can move. All right? You don't have to, you don't have to sit there. If there's not the only place to sit down, you can go somewhere else so you don't participate in that. And this is something that, we should pay attention to and stuff like that. So we avoid things that, where people are opposing what Allah says, they're opposing what Islam says, and you feel comfortable in that setting. It's different the way you can't avoid it. But then, then as the Prophet said, you hate it in your heart. وَذَلِكَ أَضْعَفُ الْإِيمَانِ. Right? That's the weakest level of faith. Right? Then you hate because you can't avoid it. Like for instance, on your job, you have to be there, and some program or something that you have to be there present, and but you have to let people know your position. Like you don't appreciate that kind of thing like that, but you have to be there. So you hate it in your heart. But as long as you can avoid it, stay away from it. Let's go down. Everybody in the offices, we're going to hang out for a little bit, So they go on and they go to the club. You can't go with them, right? You got to make an excuse, like I got some other work to do, something. Don't go hang out with them in the club because, the club is not a good place to hang out. All right, some stuff like that. So you avoid places of haram as best as you can, right? You avoid it and so on, because as the Prophet also says, that the hijrah, man hajra ma, right? That it is to forsake the plain things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made haram, right? There's a form of hijrah, to make hijrah or to move away, from the things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made haram. Don't stay in the presence as though you accept it or though you're condoning it or it's not a problem, you don't have a problem with it. Because the Prophet says, Man ra'a minkum munkar falyughayyiru bihi. If you see wrong being done, you have to have a position. You're going to say, it's not my business. This is your business. Right? It is your business. Because it is haram. What's going on? So, at least, if you can't change it with your hand because you don't have no authority or power to do so, at least speak out against it. This is wrong, we can't physically do anything about what happened to our brothers and sisters in Palestine, but we can speak about it. Right? We can speak on this is wrong. What you're doing, this genocide is not right. So we can, we can speak out. And although some Muslims will say, well, they just hate it in their heart because they don't want to say anything because they don't want to affect their own position and stuff like that, whatever the case might be. But the best when you're in a position where you can speak out, you speak out against it. All right? So that is another form of thing. You stay away from it until something different is happening. And that is required as part of a hijrah, another situation of hijrah is, where you move from a place where you're being subjected to physical abuse and harm, like what the believers did, at the time. right? We can, where is that? And this we should do. We should move away from there, right? We should move away from there once we can, all right? Once we can, we should move away from that kind of situation, as Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam, when, his people, he tried his best with his people. His father, he tried his best. But, instead what they want to do, they want to kill him. They want to burn him up and stuff like that. So he said, Inni muhajirun ila rabbi. Look, I get out of this place. And he moved away, right? He moved away from that place. So you in situations like that, once you can move away, you from it, and it's best, that you try to. So you don't have to stay there if that is the case. You can move from there. You should move from there, right? And that is important for a position. There are different kind of rulings, the different rulings that they have, the scholars make in relation to this thing of hijrah. The hijrah from Mecca to Medina has been abrogated, as the Prophet ﷺ said, La hijra ba'd al-fath. There's no hijrah after the conquest of Mecca. So because before the conquest of Mecca, hijrah from Mecca to Medina was obligatory. It was fard, right? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chided those believers who stayed in Mecca, right? For whatever reason they stayed there when they could have made hijrah, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chided them for that, for staying in Mecca and when they could have moved. The only one who was exempted in that is those people who could not make hijrah. Like, women who their family kept them, or their children, parents who kept their children, or slaves, or people like this who had no means. They can't really leave. They have no authority. They couldn't leave, right? So they kept, like Salima, how they kept, her tribe kept her back, and then they held her child and stuff like that. So they, in cases like that, people don't have no choice, right? People don't have no choice in matters like that. So they're not held accountable. They're not held accountable. But other people, those people who could have made hijrah, but maybe they didn't want to interrupt their business or whatever the circumstances or whatever it is, and they didn't make hijrah. Allah chided them for not making hijrah, because hijrah from Mecca to Medina at that time was obligatory. So in that hijrah has been abrogated, so it is no longer valid to make hijrah, that hijrah. But hijrah from a land of oppression, from a land of oppression where one is oppressed and one is prevented from practicing their deen, from raising the sha'air of Islam. For instance, you can't pray, you can't fast. They give you a hard, people prevent you from doing the basic things of Islam, and you find a hardship in doing so. Like what happened in the time of Mecca, right? Like what happened in the time of Mecca, hijrah becomes obligatory on you. Hijrah becomes obligatory on you because you will have to, because worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is obligatory. And if you can't establish salah, the people won't allow you to do so, then you need to move from there. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, concerning this, He says that, on Qiyamah, when we said to those, who were oppressed in the land, because of this, they were not allowed to practice this deen. And it will be questioned, they will be questioned, Fima kuntum, what was your condition? What was happening? What was your state? And they said, Kunna mustada'afin. They said we were mustadafin, we were oppressed in the land. We were, we were oppressed in the land. And it will be certain, awalam takun ardullahi wasi'atun. Was not Allah's earth spacious enough for you to hajiru fiha, that you could make hijrah and go away from there and practice your deen in other places? You can go. So such persons will get punished because they allow the servants, themselves to remain in a situation where they are oppressed when they can move from there and go and worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in another place. All right, so matters like that, you have to make the hijrah from those places. They said it's obligatory to make hijrah from those places. As we mentioned, the ruling about moving away from things where fitna and there's haram and stuff like that, that is also strongly recommended. Right? It's mustahab to stay away from places of fitna. It is strongly recommended to do so. It's mustahab. And but moving from a place to a place that is better for you is permissible. It's not obligatory, but it's permissible. Right? So here is not as nice. Over there is a much better place. You can live in better circumstances. You can practice better and so on over there. Yeah, that thing we're moving to a place that is much better. That is permissible. It's not obligatory, but it is permissible to do so. Here in the ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says of them, Haju fillahi ba'da ma dhulumi, those who have been oppressed in the land, those who make hijrah for Allah because they were oppressed in the land. And we know the situation, and that's why the matter might be in this early stage of the believers in Mecca, right? When they made hijrah to Abyssinia, right? They made hijrah to Abyssinia, and it is this group. It is in that group. They were not just poor people and so on. And it had people of repute and good standing in Meccan society. Uthman, and his wife, who was the daughter of the Prophet ﷺ, people like this, Ja'far and people like this, people who are of importance. But the circumstances were such, and they just couldn't tolerate it anymore, and they made the hijrah. The Prophet gave them permission to make hijrah, right? And they made hijrah to Abyssinia because it was there they could practice deen much more freely, because as the Prophet says, there's a righteous king over there. It was a Christian king, and Najashi was the Christian king who was the king over there, and they were able to go there and benefit. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned that those who do so, لَنَبَوِّئَنَّهُمْ فِي الدُّنْيَا حَسَنَةً وَفِي الْآخِرَةِ وَالْأَجْرُ الْآخِرَةِ أَكْبَرُ. Here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is indicating that there's tremendous benefit or reward in making hijrah. In making hijrah, there's, when you make hijrah for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you're making hijrah, that you're doing this sincerely. Of course, to make that kind of commitment, it calls for the person is committed to deen. It means that they have a strong yaqeen, strong iman, and they have firm yaqeen in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so they make the hijrah. So because in making that kind of sincere effort, for the cause of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says they will have a good reward in this life. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward them in the dunya and in the akhirah. Right? So anyone who strives in the cause of Allah and do what is right and make these kind of decisions because of the commitment to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His deen, such persons get rewards from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the dunya and in the akhirah. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that, نُبَوِّئَنَّهُمْ فِي الدُّنْيَا حَسَنًا. Allah will give them good in this life, a good place of abode, a good home in this life. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give them a good life, a good home in this life. In this dunya, He will give them a good home. That means they have better living conditions, right? They will have better living conditions once they make hijrah. Allah will provide better living conditions for them. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would give them a place of safety, right? They can live in safety and honor. And eventually, like what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did for the believers when they made migration, when they made hijrah to Medina, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala eventually gave them victory over the people of Mecca. Eventually, they got victory over the people of Mecca. So while it would be a temporary inconvenience for them in moving, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave them better than what they had in the dunya. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned the second part of it is the benefits of the hereafter. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلَأَجْرُ الْآخِرَةِ أَكْبَرُ. And the reward of the hereafter is even greater. Is even greater than that. We do not, we can't imagine the things, because the benefits of the hereafter is beyond our wildest dreams and imagination, right? As we talked about it, in previous ayahs, that the reward of the hereafter is greater than we can imagine. It's greater than we can even imagine. You got Jannat in Tajri min tahti al-nar, and as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about the rewards of the hereafter, not just the greatness of the Jannah that they have, but on top of all the bounties and favors and blessings and of Jannah, stuff that lies beyond our imagination, that in the Jannah, Rasulullah says, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will also reveal Himself to the believers. And that is that is the supreme thing you can imagine. Imagine, you can't imagine, but I don't know what it would be like to you to actually see Allah. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that, that is what would get to the believers. The Prophet ﷺ says that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, after the believers got everything, He's given whatever they want, all their heart's desire, and that which they never even thought of. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will say to the people of Jannah, is there anything else they can give you? And they says, oh my Lord, you've given us everything. We've given what we can't even imagine you've given us. So there's nothing else we can think of that, And then the Prophet ﷺ says, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will lift the veil, and people will be able to see Allah like how they see the full moon on a clear night. Yeah, so I can imagine the ecstasy of that moment. That's the greatest thing. It's greater than Jannah. That is greater than Jannah. Everything that is Jannah, with all that stuff that in Jannah is, how Jannah is fantastic. But seeing Allah is the most fantastic thing that could happen to any person. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it easy for us, take us Jannah, so inshallah we can have that experience, inshallah. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala then He mentions who these people are. He mentions the qualities, right? He mentioned two distinct qualities of them, right? He says, Alladhina sabaru, those who are patient, who patiently persevere, wa ala rabbihim yatawakkalun, and who put their trust and dependence on Allah. Two important qualities. Two important qualities. Because Iman is not enough. Iman is not enough. You have to have patience. Iman calls for patience. Iman and taqwa calls for patience. If you're not patient, you're not going to make it. If you're not patient, you're going to give up. So we have to be able to patiently persevere. Because patience means to, to be able to restrain yourself despite the circumstances, despite your ability to do different, you're going to remain steadfast. In that, we have to learn how to do, because patience is not easy, right? Patience is not an easy thing. Patience is difficult, right? And until you reach a point like that, I remember there was, when I lived in Nassau, and this sister would always, whenever she had issues, and I would tell her, sister, you got to learn how to be patient. She's very always hasty. No, you have to learn how to be patient. You have to be patient. You're not being patient, right? And, if you put your trust in Allah, Allah can work it out. But don't, be patient. And, she would always say, and then one day she came to me and she says, she said, Sheikh Daud, this patient thing is hard. She said, I know you always telling me about being patient, but I didn't understand what you mean. He said, but this thing is really hard. I don't know if I can do it. Because when she started and she realized what it was, she said, this patience thing is hard. Right? I said, yes. Right? As-sabru mur. As-sabru mur. There's an Arabic saying. Patience is bitter. Right? Patience is bitter. Right? As-sabru mur. Its patience is bitter, but its natija, its reward, its hul, is sweet. Right? Its reward or results is sweet. Right? So you gotta, you gotta hold on. It's like, you take as when we were kids growing up, and you sick or something like that, and your parents, they give some medicine. The medicine always bitter, it always tastes bad. It always tastes bad. I don't know why medicine always have to taste bad, but it always tastes bad, And so there was, but if you don't take it, you don't get the benefit of shifa, right? Of healing. You get better after you take it, right? But it's always, so the sweetness comes after the bitterness. I don't know, that's why I guess when we were kids, they give you medicine and stuff, they always can give you something sweet after. Just to give you something sweet after, So you take the medicine and you just to get the sweet stuff, But that's patience. Patience is difficult, And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala emphasizes patience, right? As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned, وَمَا يُلَقَّاهَا إِلَّا الَّذِينَ صَبَرُوا. Only the one who patiently persevere will be able to achieve the success. Because as-sabr miftah al-farj, as they say in the Arabic language. Right? As-sabru miftah al-farj. So it is important for us to be able to exercise patience, persevere despite the circumstances, despite how it comfort, because we want to achieve the final result, which is Jannah. So Jannah doesn't come with ease. Jannah comes with challenge. Jannah comes with challenge and difficulties, as the Prophet ﷺ tells us that when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created the Jannah, He tells Jibreel to go and inspect the Jannah. And Jibreel went and inspected the Jannah, and he came back, and then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, what you think? He says, oh Allah, everybody can go there. There's nobody that will not want to go there. This place is fantastic. Everybody can go. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala surrounded the Jannah with challenges and difficulties and hardships. And he tell him to go look at it. And when he saw it, he says, Allah, it can be hard for people to go there. It will be hard for people to go there. So because it calls for patience, right? And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, الَّذِينَ صَبَرُوا وَعَلَىٰ رَبِّهِمْ يَتَوَكَّلُونَ. Sabr always comes with tawakkul. Sabr comes with tawakkul. Tawakkul means that you put your trust and dependence on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. At-tawakkul means that you put your dependence and trust because you believe and you know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to take care of things. All right? And it's important, just one short point in relation to this that people need to understand when we say tawakkul, what it means. Tawakkul means ittikhad al-asbab. Tawakkul means ittikhad al-asbab. It means you do what you can, right? What Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given you the ability to do. And what lies beyond, so tawakkul is always in what lies beyond your ability. You cannot bring the results. You cannot produce the results. The results is always in the hands of Allah. But you got to do everything that you can and then left the results in the hands of Allah. Don't burden yourself. Don't get frustrated. Don't get, like people make dua. Even you make dua, right? And the Prophet tells us, ad-dua mustajab. He says all prayers, all du'as is accepted, is responded to. Ad-dua mustajab. The Prophet tells in hadith, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, ud'uni astajib lakum. You call on me and I will respond to you. Right? But you got to be patient. When you make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because of our nature of hastiness, like me might want it now for now. But, it might not come at the time when you exactly want it right now, because now might not be the time for it. It might not be the best time for it, but for sure it can come on time. It will be always on time, always at the right time. It will be there. You'll receive it. No matter how much effort you make and you do it, it will come whenever Allah subhanahu. So that's why the Prophet said, ad-du'a mustajab ma lam yu'ajjal. Dua will always be responded to unless you haste. You are hasty. Right? And then when I asked the Prophet, what you mean, how you do it? He says, ta'awtu Allah falam yastajib li. Or, I asked Allah for this and until now I ain't got it yet. Or he hasn't responded to me yet. No, don't put no time limit on Allah. Don't put no thing. You ask Allah, you put it in Allah's hands. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to give it to you when you need it, right? Or when it is beneficial, when it's best for you, Allah will give it to you. And sometimes what we ask for might not even be good for us, so Allah give us something that's in return. Right? Allah will give us something else in return, and in the hereafter, He'll give us what will be best for us. So we got to learn always to recognize Allah's favors on you, because you might ask for this, and Allah give you that instead, because this is much more better for you than that. And because you're looking for that and expecting that, you don't give thanks that you receive this, which is better than that. And very often, sometimes, we see when things don't go the way we wanted, or it didn't work out as we want, and we think it's the biggest, letdown or stuff like that, and we fret over and we work ourselves up over it, and then, we miss the plane, we miss the flight, we miss the job, we miss the opportunity, whatever it is. We feel all worked up about it and stuff like that, and we beat ourselves over the head over it, But then down the road, we realize, boy, that was a good thing that I didn't, realize that disappointment was very, very, very apt, because it worked out in your favor. It worked out in your favor. So hindsight, we see that as good. It was good. But at the moment, we thought it was the most calamitous thing that could happen. Right? But it didn't, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had something better prepared for you. Or He was protecting you from something. Right? So we always got to remember, when we make dua, that, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you don't get it like that, we got to be patient with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because maybe Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is delaying it because of some good reason. It's always a good reason. Because Allah always wants the best for us. So he's delaying it for which reason? Or he is exchanging it for something. What is ultimately good for us. You know, we know what we like. We know what we like, you know, or we love, but we don't know what is ultimately good for us. Only Allah knows that. Right? Only Allah knows what is ultimately good for us. That's Allah says. Asa an tuhibbu shay'an wa huwa sharrun lakum. You know, that's Allah said. The thing you love might be the thing that's bad for you. Right? And the thing you hate might be the thing that's best for you. So, you know, Allahu a'lam. Right? When Allah made that statement, he says, Wallahu a'lam. Allah knows best. Wa antum la ta'lamuna. You don't. Right? Allah knows best and you don't. So patience and tawakkul, they go hand in hand. Right? Patience and tawakkul goes hand in hand. So you got to make the effort. You know, you make the effort and you put your trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You know, you don't do nothing, sit down and don't do anything and, you know, expect it can work out. Right? So the individual, you know, we said, you know, I could eat some fish. You got 2 legs, you got 2 hands, and you don't go do nothing. You don't even go to the store to pick up the fish. But you expect the fish to come. It don't work like that. I mean, if you ain't got no legs, you ain't got no hands, okay, Allah might send somebody with the fish for you. Because you can't go get it. So he might send somebody with a fish for you. But, you know, I mean, you got 2 legs and 2 hands and everything, you know, you go, man, and get the fish. You go there, Allah will give you the fish up there. Right? And the Prophet ﷺ, in giving the example of tawakkul, he says, لو أنكم تتوكلون على الله حق توكله وكله. If you should put your trust in Allah as you should, or as deserving of it, right? You would be sustained like how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sustained the birds. Right? He would sustain you like how he sustained the birds. They go out in the morning with their stomach empty and they come home with the stomach full. And the birds. So who will feed the birds? Allah feed the birds. But the birds don't sit down in the nest and bang here and expect Allah can get them worms to eat. No. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they got to jump off the nest and go. Right? They jump off on the nest from where they are. They jump off and they go. They got confidence Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can hold them up to the neck and crash to the ground. So they jump off and you take them to wherever it is and you feed them and you bring them back. So tawakkul really is an important thing, that we make the effort and we put the trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Put the trust and dependence on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because if we don't do anything, that is not tawakkul. I think in Arabic you call it tawakkul. Yeah, tawakkul, not tawakkul. Tawakkul, the shadda, you know, is where you know you put your trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by doing whatever. May Allah make it easy for us. Amen.